Good evening and welcome to today's lesson. The first thing we're going to do is we're going to start out with 7-33. That was your homework for tonight. I'm just going to show you the answer. So we have 0.2, which is 20% times 25.7 equals 5.14. So 20% of 25.7. And then what they do is take the 25.7 and subtract the answer that you got here to get 20.56. It says, or you could have 100% minus 20% equals 80. The other way of doing that is you could have 0.8, which is 80% times 25.7, which gives you the 20.56. So just notice that in the first way that it's shown, there's two steps in doing it, finding what 20% is, and then subtracting that from the original amount. The other way is to do it in one step, which is 80% of 25.7. That's really what we're going to be working on today for your homework, so this is a good problem to refer back to. The other two problems that you had to work on were 736, and this one was giving you the kilometers per hour in different countries. So we had Australia, South Africa, Great Britain, and Turkey, and they had different speed limits. I think one was on the highway and one was on the roadways, and you had to convert them to what it would be miles per hour. So for each of those measurements that were given, you would take those times 0.6, because 1 kilometer is equivalent to 6/10 of a mile. So you would multiply, Australia would be 66 miles per hour. South Africa would be 60 and 72 miles per hour. Great Britain would be 58 and 67 miles per hour. And then Turkey would be 54 and 54. The last problem that you had to work with were the fractions that we had. Some were multiplying and some were, I think the first one actually was division. So I just have the answers here. If we go through the answers and you still aren't sure how you got them or how we got them, please put a star by them and we can come back to that on Monday. But A was 24, B was 42, C was 2 5/7. D had two possible answers, negative 164 over 120 or negative 1 11/30. I actually calculated it using the denominator of 60. So you could also have the denominator of 60, which would then be, just doing the math real quick, 82 over 60 and then reducing that. And then E was negative 2 81/100, and then F was 3/8. So that was the homework from last night. Today what we're going to do is just review basically and practice the things that we worked on in lesson 7.1.3. So in this lesson, we talked about what we have to multiply a number by to get an answer, and we can do that in one step or two steps. So you have a worksheet that you will be responsible for. I linked it under the calendar in Canvas, and it's labeled worksheet. It looks like this. And just so you know, you could handwrite it out on a notebook piece of paper. You could make a copy of this and then write on it. I have made copies of it, so if you want to just pop into my room and grab the copies, or you could upload this to Notability and then write your answers on and then submit it that way. So a lot of different options to do this. The big thing is that you show your work. I will not give you credit if you don't show your work. We are going to be working on number 1 and then on number 4, because there are two different types of questions. So those will be good questions to go through so you have good examples. For these, I'm going to show you using a linear model just so you can visualize it. You don't have to show the linear model unless it helps you. So the direction says your job is to answer the following questions. Make sure you show your work. We are focusing on thinking about which multiplier should be used to help solve a problem. So we have in number 1, a small bag of flour weighed 13 ounces. Remember, 16 ounces is in a pound, so this is less than 1 pound. A large bag was 5% heavier. So if I think about this in terms of a linear model, I'm going to have a line, which is not very straight, but I'm going to have a line, and this is going to represent 100% of that small bag. And I know that small bag weighs 13 ounces. A large bag is going to weigh this 13 ounces plus a little bit more. I know it's going to weigh 5% more, and what I have to do is calculate this amount, which is telling me what it's going to weigh in ounces. So I have 100, and when I get to here, this would be 105. There's 2 ways that you could think of this problem. The first way we're going to do it is in 2 steps, and the second way we're going to do it is in 1 step. Ultimately, you have to decide which way makes a little more sense to you. So the first thing for the first way of showing you is I'm going to try to find out what 5% of, and of hopefully you remember means multiplication, 5% of 13 is. And when I do this, I have to think of 5% in the form of a decimal, which is 0.05. So I'm going to multiply 0.05 times 13. And you may use a calculator for this if you'd like. I'm going to show my work over here, but again, you can use a calculator. So I'm going to take 5 times 3, which would give me 15, and then carry the 1. 5 times 1 is 5, plus 1 is 6. There are 2 spots in my problem that show the decimal, so I'm going to have to move the decimal over 2 spots. So that tells me that 5% of 13 is 0.65. And what I have to do then is, because that's only 5%, I'm going to add that 5% to the small bag. The small bag is 13 ounces. And I'm going to add the 65 hundredths to it. And I didn't leave myself a lot of room, so I'm going to write it to the right here. So I know that 13.65 would be my answer. So again, I did this in 2 steps. The first step I did was I found out what 5% of 13 was by taking 0.05 times 13. And then I found that to be 0.65. And then I added that 5% to the 13 ounces, which I think before I might have said pounds, so I apologize if I did. And then I could write out ounces. So that would be one way of doing that, but notice that was 2 steps. So I'm, for the sake of having enough room, I'm going to erase this. If you wanted to show your work that way and didn't copy it down, feel free to rewind this video so that you can look at it again. The other way of doing this, which would be the 1-step way, would be to think of the fact that the larger bag is going to be 100% of the small bag plus 5%, which is going to be 105%. So I'm going to take 105%, notice I'm switching it to a decimal, times 13. And when you calculate this time I'm not going to calculate it out just because I don't want to run out of time on the video. This would be 13.65 ounces. Notice that was pretty quick and painless to do it that way. The hardest thing is to figure out what percent we have to multiply times the amount given. Okay, so that's one problem. You need to show your work for that one. Then you're going to work on 2, 3, and then I'm going to jump down to 4, because 4 is just a little bit different. It says Ned created a video that was originally 40 minutes long, but he ended up cutting it by 5%. And cutting is kind of a key word because that's telling me I'm going to have to do some subtracting. And again, I'm going to show this two different ways. First way is kind of similar to what I did before. Here's my total length, which is 40 minutes. That would be 100%. This time we're cutting, so I know it's going to be less than 40 minutes or less than 100%. In fact, they cut it by 8%. So I'm going to draw a little line here. So I know this much of the video is still there. We're going to eliminate this much. So the first thing I could do is I could figure out what this amount is and then subtract it from the original. So I could take 0.08, because that's 8%, and multiply it times 40. Okay, and then I know that if I set it up like this, 8 times 0 is 0, 8 times 4 is 32, and there are 2 decimal spots, so I'm going to move it over here. 8% of the video is 3.2 minutes. It's not 3 minutes and 20 seconds because this means 2/10 of a minute. So just think of it as it's a little over 3 minutes long that they're cutting. So what I could do is I could take that 40, and what I'm going to do is I'm going to subtract 3.2 minutes. So I have 10 minus 2 is 8. 9 minus 3 is 6. 3, I'm going to bring down. I know that the video now is 36 minutes, or 36.8 minutes. And that's, again, 8/10 of a minute. I'm not expecting you to convert that to minutes, but what 8/10 of a minute is. So that would be one way of doing it. So that, again, was 2 steps. First, I found the 8%, and then I subtracted it from the 40 minutes. Again, for the sake of time, I'm going to just erase this real quick. Or the sake of room, I should say, not the sake of time. The other way, which would be the one-step way, is to not think of subtracting this, but think of what the video is. The video is this amount. And I know that if I take away 8% from 100, that leaves me with 92%. He's still going to have 92% of the video. So the one-step way would be to take 92%, which would be 0.92, and then I would multiply it times the 40 minutes. That is one sloppy equation there. And if I do that correctly, do my multiplication here, start out with 0, and then 4 times 2 is 8, 4 times 9 is 36, and there are 2 decimal spots that I have to represent, so there's 1, 2, so again it would be 36.8 minutes would be the length of the video. There you go. So your job during this, or on this worksheet, is to complete 1 through 10. 2 of them we did together. And you do not have to create a linear model unless you need to. I think it helps me to set it up. You can choose whether you're going to do the one-step way or the two-step way. I guess that's pretty much the lesson. And I have about 40 seconds to spare. Not too bad. For those of you who are watching because you missed class due to the musical, I just want to tell you how cool it is that you're in the musical. I know that it takes a ton of time and a lot of practice, and you've lost a lot of sleep because you've practiced so much. So I want to say that I'm proud of you for doing that, and congratulations for making it through the season. I'm looking forward to seeing the musical. I'm going on Sunday, and then I'll see it again on the 19th when the 7th grade gets to see it. So I hope the video helped. If you have any questions, please email or stop in, and I hope you have a great weekend. Thank you.